Let's wrap up this year's animation explosion with Tom and Jerry. Yep, that's literally the name of the movie, which means it'll likely stir confusion over which one is the real Tom and Jerry movie, but whatever. So again, I'm really cheating with this one, since it all takes place in the live-action world. It's mostly the animals that are animated. But I just couldn't help but talk about this movie, since I've been interested in it for a while. So I guess I kinda feel bad for not reviewing the Sonic movie by these terms, but oh well, maybe for my popular vote. And at least then it'll remind me of a good movie with a cartoon character in the real world. Yeah, sorry to start off this review on a negative tone, but I really did not like this movie. I found it okay at first, but when I watched it a couple more times after the fact, I noticed a lot more problems with it. And if this and Scoob are anything to go by, maybe Warner Animation Group should just step away from doing Hanna-Barbera films. In a world inhabited by real humans and cartoon animals, kinda sensing a Roger Rabbit vibe here, Tom and Jerry are two regular animals who happen to come across each other and begin to form a hatred. Jerry decides to move into a hotel where he can stay safe from any danger, but this brings attention to the higher-ups of the hotel. So a new recruit named Kayla, played by Chloe Grace Moretz, hires Tom to try and get rid of him. And while this is going on, the hotel staff are trying to prepare for the biggest wedding of the year. So right off the bat, the concept of this movie kind of rubbed me the wrong way. The idea of cartoon characters in live action is one I've always been fond of and has been paid off a couple times in the past, and even to this day, but it very much has a lot of vibes to the Smurfs, in which the titular characters come to New York City and we have subplots involving characters that I don't give a shit about. And the sad part is, much like the original Tom and Jerry movie, the titular characters aren't represented as well as they should. You could argue that the human characters are meant to build up a story for them, except it feels like the opposite. Tom and Jerry are slapped into the main story, and while at first it's more about them trying to get rid of Jerry, it all just ties in with the wedding drama, which again, I don't give a shit about. Tom and Jerry themselves are hardly in the movie that much. They literally don't even come into focus until about 20 minutes in, and it's only after that point where they're used a bit more often. You could also say that Tom and Jerry are being used as the main conflict in the movie, but there's a difference between them being used for story and as the problem. While they are integrated into the story better than the original movie, it's still mainly about Kayla trying to keep her job and making sure the wedding goes according to plan. There just so happens to be a cat and mouse fighting each other, and it's making things hard. Again, I can see where people are coming from, but the story is still started off by humans and they're in it more than Tom and Jerry are, so I don't exactly see it as a big compliment. I would care more if the human characters were funny, but they aren't. The only actor I felt was really nailing it was Rob Delaney as the boss, mostly because he overacts every scene he's in, and I love it. He really does fit with the Tom and Jerry nature. The rest of them aren't horrible, but it just isn't that strong, especially when they try to have some energy, and it just feels like they're phoning it in. Also, I found Kayla to be a pretty unlikable character, which is a big problem considering she's essentially the main character of the movie. Do you want to know how she gets her job? She lies and manipulates another woman who's very excited about working at the hotel into not signing up, and then Kayla steals her resume. So yeah, she basically crushes the dreams and hard work of another woman to get her job. 10 minutes into the movie, and I already hated the main character. Oh, and did I just say the word lie? Well, yes, because unfortunately the story decides to have the dreaded liar revealed story arc, which as most of you know, I loathe. I hate it whenever movies use it. It plays out exactly the same. The character is revealed to be lying, everybody's sad, but then things will inevitably come around in the end. Christ, I thought it was time for movies to move on from that dumbass trope. Oh, and another thing about the storytelling is how at several points it feels like the movie's trying too hard to explain certain things to the audience, almost like it thinks kids are too stupid to tell the subtle story beats, like when this stupid pigeon shows up to explain what's going on, or how they try to establish this guy as the villain by having a fish look at him with a poop emoji and a thought bubble. Fuck. Now, what about the traditional Tom and Jerry slapstick? Well, it is there, but again, because Tom and Jerry aren't actually together most of the time, the slapstick takes a step back. When it is there, it's great, but when it isn't, it makes the movie unbearably boring. Not to mention the live action parts contain their own jokes, and they are painful. Especially that stupid running gag where someone's just talking on and saying irrelevant or awkward stuff before ending it with them saying, "Oh, sorry." Oh, and that stupid fucking poop scene, it just... Ugh. Now, like I said, when the movie does try to focus on the Tom and Jerry stuff, it's the best part of the movie. The animation, even though it's clearly CGI, looks really damn good. The stretchy art style has transitioned nicely to CGI, and it's cool that they still try to make them look 2D. That said, I'm not a fan of the sound effects. Most sound too realistic and don't have the punch or impact that the ones in the original shorts had. Oh, and speaking of sounds, the music in this movie is awful. I can buy them wanting to modernize some music to fit the times, but the music is really annoying. None of it sounds remotely close to a Tom and Jerry movie, and I can hear it most of the time. They don't even use the classic Tom and Jerry theme at any point, not even as a reference. What a letdown. And that's basically the term I use to describe the movie. It's a letdown. I guess I can't be that angry at it because while it has a lot of things that annoy me, it's relatively harmless. Honestly, I think Tom and Jerry fans will like the movie enough. I mean, most of the people I see calling this movie good are fans of the franchise. I mean, yeah, I'm a Tom and Jerry fan too, but I don't know, maybe I'm just a negative Nancy. But if you're a general moviegoer who's looking for something like this movie, I would just go watch Who Framed Roger Rabbit again. Or actually, go watch Fast and the Furry. That is actually a really good Tom and Jerry movie. It uses them well and it has a cartoony story with over-the-top characters that are actually funny. As for this new installment, well, I think it's better than the original Tom and Jerry movie, but not better than what I was hoping it would be. It sucks that I had to end this annual month on a negative note, but the good news is, outside of a couple of movies, most of the movies that came out last year were really damn good, especially considering there were movies that I thought would suck but actually turned out to be really good. And even the only movie that I thought was average was on the higher scale of average. Sure, the movies that were bad were really, really bad. There wasn't even any kind of generic bad movies we got last year, but the ones that are good really do make up for it. In fact, in a lot of ways, I may even consider this year better than the last. It's not as good as other years like 2016, but I think the movies we did get, despite the horrible pandemic we're in, were really damn good. I want to know what you guys thought of all the animated movies that came out last year. What were your favorites? Were there any you really liked, and which ones did you hate the most? I'm always loving to hear what other people say about it, or heck, even what other people have to say about what I think of these movies. Hopefully most of the movies that come out this year are really good, and I'm saying most of them because clearly not all of them are gonna be great, but we'll just have to wait and see when Animation Explosion comes around next year. But until then though, thank you all so much once again for sticking around for another annual month. I'll see you all in By Popular Vote month a couple months later, and keep on playing, everybody.